Just turned 60, and about 9 months before my birthday, I got super fired up. First of all, I was listening to Dr. Peter Attia talk about the centenary decathlon. This whole idea of like, what do you want to be able to do when you're 100? And those things you want to be able to do when you're 100, you better be training for them now. Then I heard this research that's wild that shows that if you have a positive mindset around aging, you live 7.5 years longer. So I thought, heck, that's easy enough to have. And I decided what I wanted to do was celebrate my birthday in the best shape of my life. So my husband, Tim, and I got DEXA body scans. So DEXA body scans, they've been used for years to help you figure out your bone mineral density, but now they also help you figure out your skeletal muscle mass and your body fat and your visceral adipose tissue. I'll be talking more about this. With that information, I designed our plans and we got to work. And I'm going to share more on those results in a little bit. So I've been in this business for a long time. In fact, I got my start nearly 40 years ago as an exercise physiologist. I was working as a personal trainer in LA. In fact, to my knowledge, there were 3 of us who were the first personal trainers in the country. Me, Mark Sisson, and Body by Jake. And I was literally paying my way through graduate and doctoral school with my personal training business. Now, back then, we were being taught that if you wanted to lose weight, you needed to, you can probably fill in the blanks for me, you needed to eat less and exercise more. You know, the old math equation. We were also taught that you should never have someone lift weights until they lost the weight. The challenge was my clients were 40 plus, and I quickly saw that this advice wasn't working for them. It also didn't make sense to me. I mean, we all know that muscle is more metabolically costly than fat, and it was just common sense to know that while calories count, where they come from simply had to count more. I mean, after all, your body isn't a bank account, right? It's a chemistry lab. So because I was working for myself and I knew I wouldn't build a successful business by making clients worse or even helping them stay the same, I basically did the opposite of what we were being taught in school. First of all, I determined my client's body composition rather than just going with scale weight. So I used a scale, I used skin fold calipers, and I used a tape measure. Because back then, we had underwater weighing to determine body composition. We didn't have the fancy scales. It is so much easier now that you have DEXA scans and bioimpedance scales, which I'm going to talk about in this course. However, that gave me the opportunity to teach clients about body composition versus weight alone, and how important it is to make sure that you're holding on to, or better yet, building muscle while losing fat. Otherwise, if you just focus on losing weight, you could lose muscle, damage your metabolism, and set you up for weight regain, just like what happened on The Biggest Loser. In fact, long before The Biggest Loser, I had a client, Vicky, who taught me this firsthand. She was a true diet pro. She had gained and lost and gained and lost, all by doing cardio and caloric restriction. And she had literally created metabolic adaptation from chronically losing muscle and gaining fat that had dropped her resting metabolic rate to around 1,000 calories. By the way, metabolic adaptation, this is what happened to The Biggest Loser candidates. Their calorie needs dropped lower than they should have, which makes it impossible for you to maintain your new weight when you go off the diet. So how did Vicky turn this around? Well, she had to add muscle and she had to eat a more thermic diet, a diet that actually burned more calories. Now, funny enough, a couple years later, I had another Vicky, and Vicky came to me because she wanted to lose weight. By that time, I had a high-end segmental bioimpedance scale, so I was able to determine her skeletal muscle, her body fat, and her visceral body fat, and I could see that Vicky didn't need to lose weight. Vicky actually was skinny fat. She just needed to change what that weight was made up of. Now, over the course of a year, Vicky did in fact lose 10 pounds of fat. However, she also put on 10 pounds of skeletal muscle. Now, if she'd been monitoring her progress by the scale alone, she would have thought she'd failed because she didn't lose any weight. even though she totally changed her body composition and dropped 2 clothing sizes in the process. So I shared earlier that I designed a plan for my husband Tim and I to ensure that when we went into our 60s, we were literally our fittest ever. I mean, I like big goals. So when I did my DEXA at 59, it was 13.9% body fat, and my weight was 154. Now, here's what's crazy. I did my DEXA for my 39th birthday, and it was exactly the same, 13.9% and 154 pounds. Now, I got to give you a little bit of a caveat here because I have an abnormally low body fat. I always have. I've literally been as low as 10%, which is really low for a female. So I don't want you to hear that and go, oh, that's my goal. Okay. Most women who get fit with the steps I'm sharing will land in the 18 to 25% range. And it's really about what is best for you with your unique body type and your genetics. Now, I'm going to share what my 60th birthday results were in a bit. So my husband, when he did his DEXA, had 25% body fat at 180 pounds. This was pretty much the same weight he'd been his entire adult life. Now, I'm betting that his body fat at 20 years old was probably more like 15%. And this is why you gotta know your body composition, because if you're the same weight as you were 20 to 30 years ago, but you haven't been actively building muscle, it's likely that your body fat has gone up because your skeletal muscle will decline with age, starting around the age between 35 and 40. So I put us both on the program that I'll be taking you through here. And 6 months later, Tim had dropped 20 pounds of fat and put on 19 pounds of muscle. He is literally in the best shape of his life. He's at 14% body fat, and now he's playing competitive beach volleyball with guys half his age. Now, I dropped another 2% body fat and 10 pounds, and I'm literally the strongest and fittest I've ever been, ever. I am lifting more weight than I did when I was training hard at Gold's Gym in Venice in my 20s. So several years ago, I was on the Dr. Phil show as their weight loss expert for 2 years. And Dr. Phil always said, get real goals. You can't be what you were in high school. And you know what I say to that? He's right. You can be even better. And here's why you want to be. Again, starting at around the age 35-40, you start to lose up to 1% of your muscle mass every year, but it gets worse. You lose up to 2 to 4% of your strength and 6% of your power. Now, a simple indicator of your overall strength is grip strength. And researchers want it to become another vital sign because it is such a great indicator of overall health. There was a 10-year prospective cohort study that showed that hand grip strength and muscle weakness are strongly associated with an increased risk of all-cause mortality and premature mortality in otherwise healthy middle-aged and older adults. So another thing that happens with aging is osteopenia and osteoporosis. This is when your bones start to get weak. And it has been estimated that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 12 men will sustain a hip fracture in their lifetime, with the majority of these happening at age 65 or older. Here's where it gets really scary. 30% of those who fracture their hip die within that first year. And many of the others suffer from a really reduced quality of life. I mean, these are dismal stats. But here's what's fantastic. They don't have to be yours. This is preventable with the right strategies, starting right now. So here's what I can promise you if you commit to what I'm teaching you in this course. First of all, a better metabolism, because I want to get you off the diet roller coaster for good. And better strength and power so that you can play full out now, but more importantly, you can play full out at 100. And looking and feeling better now in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond with more confidence, more energy, and more focus. I'm going to give you the keys to exactly what you need to do to be built to last. All right, so let me give you a little taste of what's coming. And what I really like to do are give you the big needle movers. And this really is 3 simple, yet so powerful steps. The first one is eating protein first. What's wild is the research shows that if you eat protein first, you actually make better food choices. Also, when you eat protein first, you're not as hungry. You're more satisfied. You'll have less cravings. But here's the coolest part of all. If all you did was put some protein in, kick out some carbs and fat, that alone will cause weight loss because protein is more thermic than fat and carbohydrates. That means it requires more energy to be digested and assimilated. 20 to 30% of the calories from protein are required to digest and assimilate it. And study after study shows that when you increase protein intake, even without dropping calories, and even sometimes increasing calories, you lose weight and you're not hungry. And let's be honest, what's the biggest thing that's going to take you out when you try to get healthier? Hunger and cravings, right? This is the solution. So you eat protein first for better blood sugar control, for a better metabolism because of that thermic effect of food, and also because when you eat more protein, it helps you hold on to and build lean tissue, skeletal muscle. And the reason that I have you eat it first is I want to make sure that you get it in. And I'm going to give you the exact calculation for how much you need to eat at specific meals and throughout the day for you. Now, the next step is to lift heavy things. So a couple things I like to say about muscle. And I have been helping people lift weights for now 40 years. Muscle is so mission critical for your metabolism. It is what I call metabolic Spanx. It holds everything in tighter, right? And it boosts your metabolism because muscle requires more energy to be sustained on your body. Muscle protein turnover and muscle protein synthesis are very expensive activities. They burn a lot of calories. So that's the first one. Muscle is metabolic Spanx, and muscle is also a sugar sponge. It gives those carbohydrates you're eating a place to land. And what's super cool about that is when you have more muscle, it quickly improves your insulin sensitivity. One of the biggest things we have going on right now is we have less than 7% of the population who are metabolically healthy. A big part of that is that they're insulin resistant. One of the fastest ways to restore insulin sensitivity is through resistance training. But here's the thing. You're either using your muscles, or if you're 35, 40 plus, you're losing your muscles. And when we're working out, we are working out to be better at life, not to be better at the gym. Right? So I'm going to walk you through how you train for muscle size. And no, you're not going to get bigger, you're going to get tighter. For muscle strength and for muscle power, because these are all mission critical for you to be able to continue to play full out and have a body that's built to last. I'm going to show you how you can do these compound movements, now whether you're at a home or at a gym, that are going to help you be very functional, that are going to help you walk, move through life easily. And no, you're not going to get bigger, you're going to get stronger and better. And the third part of this is sleeping through the night. And there's this idea that as we age, we need less. We need less protein, we need less sleep. Just like we don't need less protein as we age, we need more. We also need quality sleep as we age because sleep is where we release that human growth hormone the most, and sleep is where we rebuild. And in fact, just one poor night of sleep, you raise stress hormones, you become more insulin resistant, and you become more catabolic. You're breaking down instead of building up. As we age, we're breaking down more than we're building up. We've got to reverse that equation. So I'm going to give you key strategies you can do to ensure that you fall asleep, stay asleep, and get quality sleep. Here's my promise to you. You are going to learn the right amount of protein for you and how to easily incorporate it into your daily plan. You're going to discover the exercise prescription to help you build muscle and burn fat. And you'll get some actionable tips to ensure that you get a great night's sleep every night. And you'll leave with a simple plan that you can build on to ensure that you are built to last. Here is your new mantra. Ready? Eat protein first. And when you eat protein first, honestly, everything gets easier. First of all, when you eat protein first, the studies show that you make better food choices overall, like you eat more veggies. And when you eat protein first, you tend to not have the cravings, because one of the big things that happens when you eat protein first is that you have better satiety. Protein actually helps slow down stomach emptying because it suppresses ghrelin. Ghrelin is a hormone secreted by the stomach when it's empty. It also impacts two other hormones. They're called incretin hormones, and these are GIP and GLP-1. Now, you probably have heard about these lately because these are the hormones that can be impacted by those new weight loss drugs like semaglutide and tirzepatide, the Mounjaros and Ozempic and Wegovy, that are working so well because they help people not be hungry, but also because these incretin hormones also help regulate insulin secretion after eating. And also another thing that protein does, because it helps with this GLP-1 and GIP and ghrelin, is that number one, it's satiety, but also blood sugar stability. And boy, when you have great satiety and blood sugar stability, it makes making the right choices easy. But there's more. Now, here's what's super cool. One of the things we know about metabolism is that part of your metabolism, how much you burn throughout the day, how many calories you burn, is due to the thermic effect of food. When you eat, your food requires energy, burns calories to be digested and absorbed. Now, carbohydrates don't require much energy to be absorbed, 5 to 10%, but contrast that with protein. 20 to 30% of protein's calories are used in metabolizing protein. Think about this. So if you replace some of your carbohydrates or fat with protein and you keep calories the same, you'll actually lose weight, because if you replace 100 calories of fat with 100 calories of protein, it's actually 30 calories less. So you've got the thermic effect. So far, better satiety, right? Better blood sugar control and better metabolism. So let's talk about why we eat protein. Protein we eat for amino acids. And we get 9 essential amino acids from food. We have 11 other essential amino acids that are non-essential. We don't have to get them from food, but we need those 9 essential amino acids daily. We use our amino acids daily, and if we are not getting them from the food we eat, we have to get them from somewhere, and the somewhere is your muscle tissues initially. Now, why are we getting amino acids? We need amino acids for building and repairing our muscles, our bones, for making hormones, for making enzymes, and we can also use protein for fuel, but that is not ideal. Generally, if you've got excess protein that you don't need for the other processes, it's either burned as ketones or it goes through gluconeogenesis in the liver to make new blood sugar, new glucose. But the deal is both of those strategies are very metabolically costly. So even if you did eat too much protein, because I have people say, oh my gosh, but if you overeat it, your body can burn it for fuel. But it's very unlikely that that's going to happen because normally we're using it. So here's the deal. We aren't getting anywhere near what we need. The RDA is a joke. It's literally decades old research that was based on nitrogen balance studies in young men. One of the big problems with that is we need more at different times in our life. And one of the times we especially need more is as we age. 35 plus, we start to head into something called anabolic resistance. And that is where we have trouble getting the amino acids from the protein and building muscle from them. And so we actually need more protein. Now we can overcome anabolic resistance with 2 things: diet and resistance training. And in diet, it's specifically a certain amino acid that you get in protein called leucine. So leucine is an essential amino acid, and what's been found is that at 2.5 grams, it basically turns on muscle protein synthesis. Now, in your 20s, when your muscle protein synthesis is more hormone driven, this doesn't matter. But as we start to get older, we have to have this turned on in order to get out of muscle protein breakdown and move into muscle building. And if we don't have enough leucine, we never flip this switch. So when you get up in the morning and you say, you know what, I'm going to have a muffin and a latte, or I'm going to have some avocado toast, and you don't get the protein you need, you stay in breakdown, not building. If you're under eating, if you're not getting enough protein, you got to get those amino acids from somewhere, and you're going to get them from your muscle. So what happens when you're not getting enough protein? And again, the RDA right now is about half of where it should be. The RDA is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is about 0.4 grams per pound of body weight. And ideally, you want to be about twice that much. The average woman is eating somewhere in the 40 to 65 grams of protein a day, woefully low. Now, here's what happens when you are not getting enough protein, which means you're not getting enough amino acids. You are going to end up overeating overall. So there were these two researchers from the University of Sydney, Rabenheimer and Simpson. And these were bug researchers, and they discovered this hypothesis called the protein leverage hypothesis. So they were studying appetite and food intake in locusts, believe it or not. And what they found was that those who weren't getting enough protein in their diet were hungry, even when they ate enough calories, even when their calorie intake was high. And so they would overeat in order to get more protein. And so there's this problem we have right now with ultra-processed foods, and they're called protein decoys. And these are ultra-processed savory foods that don't have much protein. Think like barbecued chips. So those things that seem like they should have protein in them get us to start overeating because we're trying to get more protein. There is a hormone, FGF21, that's released from the liver that can drive savory-seeking behavior, and under conditions of low protein intake is going to make you want more of that savory food and overeat. So the protein leverage hypothesis states that human beings will prioritize the consumption of protein in food over other dietary components, and they'll eat until their protein needs have been met, regardless of how many calories they've eaten, leading to overconsumption of food when that food has low protein content. So here's the deal. Here's how we break this down. You're eating some of this ultra-processed food. You're eating things that are umami, that are savory, but they don't have a lot of protein. And if you don't have enough protein, you will continue to eat those things because your body has a drive to eat this until you actually get to enough protein. But it causes you to massively overeat. And in fact, what ultra-processed foods show us is that we tend to eat 500 extra calories a day. Holy smokes. Now, here's the next important thing here. Not all protein is created equal. We're going to be talking about animal protein and plant protein, but there's things you need to look at. You need to look at protein digestibility, protein quality, and the amino acid profile. How balanced are those essential amino acids? The deal is that animal protein has a more optimal amino acid profile and is more digestible. Plants tend to be low in one or more of the amino acids, so you actually are going to need to eat more of that plant protein to get what you need. However, the challenge with plants is that plants either come along with carbs or fat, so you end up overeating carbs and fat and overall calories to get to the right amino acid profile. Let me show you what I mean. A chicken breast, 4 ounces, has 30 grams of protein and 3 grams of leucine, and it's just under 200 calories. Now, remember I said that we needed that 2.5 grams of leucine to trigger muscle protein synthesis. So that's really what we're looking for, especially when we talk about your first meal of the day. Let's contrast that with quinoa. So 4 cups of quinoa has less than 2 grams of leucine. If we wanted to get enough leucine, we would actually have to bump up to another cup. But the 4 cups of quinoa to have 30 grams of protein has 900 calories, and it doesn't even have enough leucine. So if you are a vegan or a vegetarian and committed to doing that, first I would have you look at this and go, are you doing that for your health? Because if you're committed for your health, you may want to look at how you can start to incorporate clean animal protein into your diet. Remember, you are what you eat. Never advocating for factory-raised animals. I'm talking wild, I'm talking grass-fed and finished and pastured. Now, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, you can use plant-based protein powders and you can use an essential amino acid blend to ensure that you're getting what you need and avoid overloading carbs and fats, right? But you're going to have to be super, super mindful as you're doing this because it is really easy to overload yourself. Now, with animals, when you're eating animal protein, you're going to always have it come with fat. Animal protein always comes with fat. So like I said, you are what you eat. 8 quality matters, which means pasture raised, grass fed, and grass finished. Because all cows are grass fed, But then they'll go and finish them with corn to fatten them up, and it makes them more inflammatory, right? So grass-fed and grass-finished, don't be duped. Wild seafood. Why is this all so important? Here's the thing. We store toxins in our fat, and so they are doing things here to fatten up these animals, fatten up this fish, and then they are giving them pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, hormones that would be stored in their fat. But also, we know that when you're eating a more pro-inflammatory diet of genetically modified corn and soy that's not even indigenous to what you should be eating anyway, that it is going to make your fatty acid profile more inflammatory as well. So you are what you eat. Choose wisely. You want to avoid those factory farmed animals because, again, the inflammation. And here's another thing. If you are not used to eating higher protein, let's say you're a transitioning vegan or vegetarian, you are also going to want to look at your digestion. We're going to talk about this in supplements, but one of the things you want to look at is using protein digestive enzymes because your body is in the state of use it or lose it. You've heard that. And if you're not eating meat or much meat, you're not producing much hydrochloric acid. And all of a sudden, if you start elevating your protein intake, your body's going to not be ready to handle it yet. So a simple fix, and I think for anyone age 30 plus or under any kind of stress, they should do a trial of digestive enzymes because the results can be amazing for how you feel. It makes it so much easier to digest things. You feel so much better. You don't feel sometimes that weighted down feeling when you eat. There's one other piece to this puzzle besides the You Are What You Eat 8. So my first big book was The Virgin Diet. And I used to go and teach doctors this course called Overcoming Weight Loss Resistance. And one of the things I taught them about was how to use a food sensitivity test to identify inflammation, because this can cause cravings and weight gain. So I had the opportunity to look at a lot of food sensitivity testing. And this is really looking at your gut permeability, how leaky your gut is, and if food particles are starting to sneak out, poorly digested food particles are starting to sneak out through your small intestine. And your small intestine is one cell wall thick, and right beyond it lies your immune system. And so if these things sneak out to where they're not supposed to be, your immune system goes, what the heck is that? And launches an immune attack. So you've got these little protein molecules called antigens sneaking across the border, and then your body launches an attack with antibodies because it sees them as foreign invaders. These antibodies, if there's just a few of these foreign invaders, will eat them and get rid of them. But likely these are things that you're doing every single day, maybe even just a little bit, a little cream in your coffee, right? A little bit of soy milk, a little bit of sourdough bread with your avocado toast. But it's the little bit every single day that's causing the problem. And now your body is producing antibodies. These antibodies grab a hold of these antigens and form immune complexes that your body can't get rid of. And they start to build up. And what do you start to notice? Inflammation, joint pain, headaches, skin problems. You start to crave the very foods that are hurting you. You can't lose weight. Those are just a few of the symptoms of this. And the thing is, you wouldn't know because this happens slowly and you think, oh, it is just normal for me to get some gas and bloating in the afternoon. Oh, it's just normal for me to crave that morning coffee with cream. Oh, it's just normal for me to break out a little bit. When it's really your body screaming out saying, hey, this food isn't working for me. So I say this because quite often, if you are a vegetarian, you are relying on dairy and eggs for your protein sources. And dairy, whey protein, is an amazing source of leucine. It can be incredible for you. However, not if it doesn't work for you, not if you are intolerant to it. And just because you're intolerant to it now doesn't mean you are intolerant to it forever. You can heal your gut and sometimes rotate these foods back in. But having looked at hundreds of these food sensitivity tests, the top foods I always saw were dairy and eggs. And then the next tier were soy, corn, and peanuts. And by the way, gluten was the driver for making your gut leakier. So I say this because if you're a vegetarian relying on dairy and eggs, you've got to do the work either by doing a food sensitivity test called an IgG4 or going and doing the Virgin Diet to figure out which foods work for you and which foods don't, so that you're not starting to eat something every single day that's creating inflammation and making you worse, not better. Similarly with vegans, oftentimes you're relying on soy and maybe gluten protein, and again, you can have that same problem. So I say this because protein drives food intolerance. And so you've got to know which foods work for you and which foods don't. It is super important. Now, how much protein do you need? And I am so glad you asked. We already discussed that the RDA is silly. And again, starting at age 35, 40, you need more, not less. So what we're going to do is determine your protein needs based on your target body weight. So if you want to lose 10 pounds, use that new weight as your target body weight that you're going to dose your protein at. So the first thing we're identifying is your target body weight. What is that weight that you're looking to weigh that you feel comfortable at? We are going to talk in this course about why we have to look past weight and what your weight is made up of in body composition. But for now, we are talking target body weight. You take that weight and you multiply that weight by 0.7 and 1. So let's say that your weight is, I'm going to make it easy math for me, but let's say it's 100 pounds, all right? So that means, well, I'll say it's 200 pounds. That'll make it easier. So that means that you are going to eat between 140 and 200 grams of protein a day. See how easy that is? How do you decide what to do here? I'm going to tell you that for anyone, the bare minimum protein you're going to be eating a day as an adult is 100 grams a day. We're going to talk about how to divide that. That's the minimum. And what you're going to get from the 0.7 to 1 is if your 0.7 is lower than that, use 100 as the minimum, and then use the 1 gram per pound of target body weight as likely more your ideal. You want to be eating that 1 gram if you're under stress, if you're recovering from an injury, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, or you're sedentary. And why am I saying that again about a vegan or vegetarian, especially a vegan? Because your protein quality, you're eating protein for the amino acids. So if you're eating protein for the amino acids, but your amino acid blend isn't where it needs to be, you're going to have to eat more protein to get to where you need to be. So that's why I have you do more if you're a vegan. So that's the first step. Now, if you're trying to build muscle, go to the 1 gram per pound of target body weight. If you're trying to hold on to muscle while you lose fat, go to the 1 gram per pound of target body weight. So for most of us, guess what? Your goal is going to be 1 gram per pound of target body weight. If you're in a maintenance stage with everything, you can probably do the 0.7 grams. But for most of us, especially if you're looking at holding onto or building muscle as you lose fat, the higher range is going to be better for you. Again, remember I talked about the thermic effect of protein. Just increasing your protein is going to help with satiety and help you lose weight. So that's the first part. Now, you have your amount overall. Let's say that overall you're supposed to eat 150 grams a day. You're eating 3 meals a day, and doesn't need to be an even division, but what needs to happen is your first and last meals, your bumper meals, are going to be the most important. Your first meal in the morning when you are breaking your fast, whenever that meal is, and we're talking about meal timing when we talk about eat by the clock, so we're going to talk about why you want to eat at a specific time. But that first meal, when you break the fast, is when you are breaking something called muscle protein breakdown. You've had an overnight fast, gave your body time to heal, gave your intestines time to get cleaned out, and now you want to stop the muscle protein breakdown that's happening to get rid of old cells, to help clean out the debris. Now you want to go into muscle protein synthesis, because remember, otherwise we are constantly in muscle protein turnover, right? You have to have 2.5 grams of leucine in order to do that. So that bumper meal, kind of the baseline is 30 grams, but that is if you're eating a high quality balanced amino acid blend. If it's vegan, you probably need to go to 40. And if anything, go higher, not lower. So generally that first meal is somewhere in the 30 to 60 grams of protein. And I say don't bother going over 60. It's going to be hard for your body to use that. We can still use it as fuel though. But let's think of 30 to 60 grams, ideally around 40 to 50 grams for your breakfast and for your dinner. Okay, because those are your bumper meals. At night, when we eat our last meal, and again, we'll talk about when that should be, when we eat by the clock. At night, when you do that, you're really doing this so that you can sustain muscle protein synthesis as long as possible, because remember, as you sleep, you're going to go into some muscle protein breakdown, right? And then you'll have lunch. What you don't want to do here is drip protein all throughout the day. Have like 10 grams at breakfast and then have a mid-morning snack and then have a little lunch, because you'll never trigger that leucine trigger for muscle protein synthesis. So you're just dripping it. So we don't want to drip. We want to have meals. That's super important. And one of the things I'm providing for you to make this super easy, we're going to do a meal assembly, so you'll see how easy this is to do. But I'm also going to provide a handout of a lot of different animal and plant 30 to 40 gram of protein sources, so you can see what you need to do. And again, except for protein powders, animal sources are going to come with some fat. Choose lean sources, things like chicken breast, filet, wild fish. That's where I don't mind the fat because it's so fantastic for you. Wild fish, but shellfish is super low. Turkey. And then on the plant protein, plants either come with carbs or fat. So you just need to make sure that you're adding that in. And again, we'll give you that handout. So here's the big thing. Your new mantra: eat protein first. Your next thing is getting minimally at least 30 grams at each meal. A little more is better, and minimally 100 grams overall, but really dose it per your target body weight, because that is going to make it so much easier for you to improve your body composition without any hunger along with it.